Hello loves, Dark Side back again with another episode of the Dark Side Goes to Jail series. Okay, so I think this is episode 8 we're on. It's now going to be transitioning into Dark Side Goes to Prison because now, in the last episode, I was officially sentenced by the judge to serve 48 months in the Florida Department of Corrections. Okay, so now I'm sentenced and I'm going to be leaving the county jail and going to prison. Okay, so for those of you that don't know what this series is about, it basically is just, chronicles of everything that happened to me from the day that I got arrested, on my charges, got sent to the county jail, had to stay there for, a few months, and then got sent to prison for, got convicted and sent to prison for 4 years. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. If you want to hear the rest of the episodes, it's really cool. Go check it out. I'm going to try and see if I can put everything in numerical order in like a playlist type of deal, so you guys don't have to look around for it. But I also put up some pictures here of the reception center where I had to get shipped off to. That's where you first come in to the prison system, right here. Okay guys, so I'm going to pick up where I left off last time, and I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible because there's a lot to talk about. Okay, so now that I am sentenced, I'm not allowed to be in the trustee pod anymore. Okay, so when I went back to the county, they had me get my stuff together and they moved me from F pod to A pod. I can't be in the trustee pod anymore because now I'm sentenced to Department of Corrections, to DOC time. So now I'm not allowed to be in a trustee any longer. So now I had to sit in A pod till the following Tuesday. I got sentenced on a Wednesday, and then the following Tuesday after that, I got sent, to prison. All right, so they call you about Tuesday morning. They called me about maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They knocked on my cell, told me to get ready. You're shipping out. You're going up the road, or what they call you're transferring, which you already knew that. You know what I mean? And so now, what happens now is they bring you back down to intake and they shackle you hands and legs again. You have your property in your hands. You have to gather everything. Okay, whatever you don't want to bring with you, you can leave to your friends or whatever they're in the pod. But all right, so now they load us back into the prison transport bus, or the jail transport bus, the same one we went to the courthouse in. And it's a 2.5, almost 3 hour ride all the way up to Orlando from where my county is. Okay, so now once we get there, I can't see anything, you can't see anything because there's no windows in that transport vehicle, so you can't really see much of anything. All right, so I knew we were there because we stopped, and basically it's just set up same as like in GTA. There's 2 main gates. Okay, the first gate opens, and then the transport vehicle pulls in, and they pull up over this little it kind of looks like where you go get your oil change, like one of those pits where they go down underneath. The COs go down and the correction officers go down underneath, and they look up and they try and make sure there's no contraband, there's nothing there, there's no one hiding there, no weapons, no drugs. They take the dogs around there, sniff it out, make sure there's nothing that's not supposed to be in there. So now once the correction officers get the okay to let the transport vehicle into the second gate, they kind of move forward and go into the second gate. And now this is where it gets kind of crazy, man, because now we pull up and we're at our final destination, dude. And this is where shit really starts to get crazy, because they wound up opening up the transport vehicle that we were in from the jail, and you hear the big latch open, and then it's daylight, dude. It's ridiculous. And you look around and all you see is like rows and rows of razor wire, not barbed wire, razor wire. You guys should Google it, look it up. Razor wire will fuck you up. Okay, I've seen it firsthand. It is nothing to play with, because razor wire doesn't not only stick into you, it's pointed on the ends. It is sharp. It is like a razor, basically, and it's shaped like a fat T, and it is sharp on the sides and then pointy at the ends. And there's rows and rows and rows of it. I'm going to talk about that later on as the stories go on. Okay, so now I'm here at the reception center. It's kind of basically like I figured it was going to be, but a little bit overwhelming though, because there's huge guard towers, like 70, 80 feet tall guard towers. There's guards upstairs walking around the perimeter upstairs with either shotguns or some kind of, rifles or whatever, or something like that. And I don't know if they have live rounds or if they use rubber rounds. I don't know what the hell it is, but It was pretty crazy, man. So the very first stop you go to is they come out and the correction officers have like these big, it reminded me of going back to boot camp, man. They had these big drill sergeant hats on, and they're yelling, don't talk, don't look at anybody, look at the ground, blah, 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 keep your hands behind you at all times. And they're yelling at you, and you have to walk on a yellow line, or like a orangish yellow line. Everybody has to be on the line. If you're out of line, they'll fuck you up, and they will drag your ass, and they'll put you in confinement, dude. They don't even play that shit. If you deviate from anything they tell you to do, they do not play around, all right? So now comes the time to, we load up into this big room. Okay, it's a huge room. There's like 6 or 7 tables with officers at each table. Now they're going to go through your property. Make sure that you're not supposed to have anything you're not supposed to have, any drugs or whatever the case is. People have cell phones in prison. It's possible to get them into prison. I've seen it before, all right? So they go through all your stuff. Anything that's like religious, you're allowed to keep. Only a few, like I think like 3 or 4 pictures you're allowed to keep. Everything else has to be sent back with property, all right? And has to be shipped back to where you came from, like your family or whatever. Okay, so now, next step, after they do your property, they rebag up all your stuff, and they tell you to go into another room, and now they sit you down, like there's like 5 or 6 different barber chairs, and the barbers will shave every single person's head. Unless you're like a Native American or something, you're not supposed to have your head shaved, like because it's against your religion or whatever the case may be. That's the only time. But everyone else, they have to shave your beard, they shave your head, they shave everything on your face, dude. It's insane. All right, and then from there, you have to go and grab a razor, and you go into the bathroom. And then they have to give you a fucking nasty Dollar Tree razor, shit razor, man. And it cuts your face up, and it'll fuck your face up. You're bleeding, like especially the black guys, me, like Spanish dudes, our skin's real sensitive. So like I was tore up. I was bleeding all over the place. It was really bad. Okay, so yeah, it tore me up. But now from there, they go into this big ass auditorium. There's like 50 benches all lined up. And they're skinny ass benches, maybe like 6 inches wide. No back on them, so you can't even lean back. You're like hunched over, you're exhausted, dude. You get up at like 3 in the morning. This is like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, almost 8 o'clock in the morning. And you're there all day long, okay? The first stop, while you're there, is gonna be medical. They come, they call your name, you go in, they do an AIDS test. They take like 3 or 4 vials of blood from you. They do an AIDS test, STD test, they do a vision test on you, they do like all this medical stuff. We don't know about your medical history, and they're about like a half an hour, 40 minutes talking to people. Okay, so from there, now it's time for them to go and do your profiling stuff again. They call you back, they do your pictures, okay? They do your pictures, and they fingerprints, swab test again, the DNA swab test again. But now you have to get basically almost naked in front of the officers. You're in your boxers. They want to see what kind of tattoos you have, if you're gang banging, if you're in a gang, if you're a Blood or a Crip, or like maybe you're a white supremacist, maybe you have like a swastika on you, something like that. Like I have a Latin saying on my neck, on my collarbone, and they're like, oh, you're a Latin king, and I'm like, no, I'm not a Latin king, but it is a Latin saying, you know. So anything like that, they take pictures of everything, all right? And then from there, they issue you your ID card, your what do you call it, your DC card, okay? It's got your DC number on it, which is your Department of Corrections number on it. Tells you your height, weight, birth date, all that stuff. And then you have to pin that. They go and they give you your uniforms, or your prison blues, what they call them, your prison blues. And in Florida, we wear blue, all right? Unless you're what they call permanent party, but that's later on. I'll talk about that later on. But now, it's all blue clothes. Sometimes the pants might have buttons on them, if you're lucky, if they're nice pants. Other ones have like elastic, and you gotta have your shirt tucked in all the time. And then you have to have your prison ID clipped onto the shirt at all times. And you have to have, if you're caught walking around without that shit, they can give you either call a CC, which is a corrective consultation, or a DR, which is a disciplinary report, and you can go to the box for that, okay? They have to know who you are at all times. If you lose it, you got to put in for one and get a new one, like, soon, all right? So now the next step after that is we're going to be going to lunch. We go to chow. We go to the chow hall, okay? So this is the first time I've ever ate lunch in prison, ever, okay? And it was the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life. You walk in, there's like probably 10, 12 rows of tables, 6 tables on each row, something like that. All right, and they're big metal tables, and they have like 4 seats that come off that are attached to the table. Now what happens now is everyone lines up to enter the chow hall, and you go and you wait in line, and then you walk up to this little slot, like a square slot, and they basically just shove your tray through there. One of the reasons why they make it so you don't know who's either serving your food or they don't know who you are is because maybe you have an enemy, maybe it's somebody that doesn't like you, they try and poison your food, or whatever the case. Maybe they do that to child molesters, they try and poison their food or something, you know what I mean? That's one of the safety reasons why they do it that way, so no one actually knows like who is getting served and who's serving who. That's why they do it that way, like totally anonymous. Okay, so what happens now is, like, once you get your tray, you have to go sit down at the table, and they're like these square tables, like I said, and there's like 4 seats coming off of each table. I think there's like altogether like 12, 13 rows, and there's probably like 10 tables, no, not even that, maybe like 8 tables in each row. And then, you got to get in and out quick. You got to be quick, man. You got to eat your food in like 3 or 4 minutes. If you don't eat your food fast, you got to get up and move to the next row, because they'll be like, row 1, you're done. Row 2, you're done. And then make room for the next row to come in. They got to serve like 1,400 people in a certain amount of time now, remember. So they got to try and get everyone in and out of there as quick as possible. But all right, guys, that's going to cut it off there. Next episode, I'm going to be talking about when I get to my permanent housing unit, all right, and I meet this guy. I'm not going to tell you his name or nothing, but I meet my very first convicted murderer in prison. Okay, that was a pretty crazy experience, and not what I expected at all. So, all right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.